Deven Choksey from Choksey Securities as well joins in to talk about his thoughts on the markets. Deven, hi, morning. First, let's talk about the one pillar of strength, which is why the markets managed to close in the green yesterday. IT, what's the sense that you're getting? TCS didn't have such a great performance. The markets punished the stock in Friday's session, and that was being looked as a buying opportunity. Where does IT go from here?
Good morning, Aisha. Well, certainly this is the case, I think, which is building up now, that market investors have once again started looking at, I think, risk aversion as a route to stay invested in the market. Given the kind of political uncertainty which is continuing, I think probably this is the reason for which I think they are pumping to the IT stocks. Many of the IT stocks, I think, starting yesterday, I think with Wipro, you had HCL Tech, including TCS, I think, which bounced back from the Friday low, I think have remained in a strong territory, and the money is being allotted to the IT space. Largely because the growth in the, like Wipro commentary also suggested that the growth in the US market, I think, is improving very significantly, and with a lag effect of about a quarter or so, I think they are expecting the growth to return back from UK side, and by the end of the calendar year 14, I think they are expecting the growth to come from the entire European region side. So if that being the case, then probably I think we are talking of 15 to 20% kind of a growth for the most of the top line IT companies, and that's where I think the interest is also returning back. Of course, I think risk aversion is, I think, something which I have explained, I think, is also happening at this point of time. So to my mind, I think if the IT stocks are remaining firm and they're supporting the market at this point of time, is largely because of the appetite returning back for, I think, the safety and the growth which is being assured through the frontline IT companies at this point of time.
Deven, you track Reliance very closely. They posted better than expected numbers. Do you think the big overhang is the concern that they may quite aggressively bid for the upcoming 2G auctions on Feb 14th?
I don't think so, because I think even if they have to aggressively bid for the 2G spectrum, I don't think that the amount of money that they would be ending up spending vis-a-vis the total cash that they have, I think, would be significant. At the same time, also understand it's a strategy as I see it. Basically, I think by coming into the 2G spectrum space and probably, I think, asking the other telcos to pay more, so for the telcos, I think one would easily argue that I think the bleeding would start with many of the telcos, I think, if they also end up, I think, getting into the aggressive mode of bidding the spectrum. So it's more of a damage coming into the other telcos vis-a-vis, I think, going into the Reliance. I think it may be a strategy through which I think they may probably want to launch their 4G business, I think, very aggressively and systematically. So I wouldn't think that I think it's an overhang. I call it, I think, the business strategy. On the contrary, I believe that I think at some point of time this is going to pay off very rich dividend, because I think they are going to have the unified license, which is basically, I think, going to offer the data and the voice simultaneously on the same bandwidth. So this is going to be, I think, a plus point for Reliance. So I would think that I think market would probably know this part, I think, more at some point of time.
Deven, Hindustan Zinc, finally the government has cleared the deck for residual stake sale both in Balco and Hindustan Zinc. Somewhere do you think Hindustan Zinc is the stock one should buy? Because there is merit in thinking that eventually Hindustan Zinc would be delisted.
Yes, Nikunja, I think it's a cash cow at the same time for Vedanta Group, and if this particular company, the residual stake, is bought over with whatever the cost, I think 22,000 crores of rupees, I think, which Sesa Sterlite may end up spending, they probably may end up having the cash of around 21,500 crores plus, which is available in the balance sheet of Hindustan Zinc. So from that perspective, I think it makes sense to buy out the residual stake of government, pay money from Sesa Sterlite, and probably, I think, buy it out the entire cash portfolio which they have, which according to me, I think, would make more sense going forward, because it may probably help this cash to go for some kind of inorganic growth or expansion. There is one more possibility which one cannot totally rule out, and that possibility is that retain Hindustan Zinc for a while and probably identify the inorganic growth target, and through which I think you dilute this particular stake. So one needs to, I think, look at the development very closely going forward. But certainly, I think it's a shot in arm as far as the portfolio of Hindustan Zinc coming entirely into the books of Sesa Sterlite. I think it's a good development for both this company, for Hindustan Zinc shareholders as well as for Sesa Sterlite. Both of them should gain, I think, out of this transaction.
Deven, how are you valuing Asian Paints, especially after the third quarter performance? Because the valuations are looking stretched, the demand scenario is only weak, and that thereby is pressurizing margins too.
And according to me, I think the downward scenario would probably remain, I think, on a muted lines, I think, for some more time. Though in this quarter they are expected to have the rate increase also benefiting them, and that could probably restore back the margin, the pressure which has come because of the higher amount of raw material cost and inability to pass on the cost in the earlier quarters. So maybe I think in this quarter, if they restore back the margin, which generally is, I think, a lean quarter for them, in which if you restore it back, then probably I think in a better quarter, which is April to June quarter, I think they may probably, I think, start getting the benefit out of it. So yes, I think the valuation is stretched, no fresh buying appetite at this point of time, but it's a steady business, and that's where the people are paying premium to this business, where I think they see the consistency of the growth remaining. I think even though in a single digit, I think they would probably think that this is a good business to hold on, and that's where the premium is justified.
Deven, why is the world now suddenly bullish on Aurobindo Pharma? 2 quarters ago it was considered as the ugly duckling of the market. Now it is considered like swan of a stock. It is not the best pharma company in India. They still have a lot of debt. The operating profit margins are way below 30%, and capacity utilization is also below 60%.
Well, this theory goes like this, that I think the current acquisition that they have done in the Eurozone, I think probably even though it's not profitable acquisition, I think they're acquiring this through the cash that are available in the balance sheet with them. And that's where I think they're not going to bleed further. That's the theory going. Probably I think going forward one could expect better performance coming out of that particular acquisition that they have done. But you are so right, Nico, that I think many a times in our market we start giving the disproportionate favor to an individual company. On another day, I think that few months back, I think it was not accepted in the marketplace, and today I think it is through this inorganic growth route, I think it is being accepted. I'm not totally sure as to I think how one would justify this kind of a move in the market. But as far as the positioning goes, I think we basically believe in staying with some of the proven management, proven frontline businesses, companies like Landmark Pharma, companies like Biocon, even Cipla. I think they register a better amount of growth over a period of time. So we like those companies and the business value. So stay invested with those companies vis-a-vis some of the other mid-size.
Deven, first of the cyclical names, Thermax along with Ashok Leyland, they will come out with numbers today. Now if I look at the performance, both Thermax and Ashok Leyland in last 3 months have done rather well. Do you think somewhere are we in for a result disappointment today, because there is no evidence of any real recovery and numbers may not really support the recent price action?
Well, in case of Ashok Leyland, yes, I think going by the volume numbers that they have produced in the last quarter, it is almost certain that I think in this particular result, I think they may probably end up reporting a loss in the books. So for sure, I think it is a disappointment. And you are also right that I think the improvement in the condition is not yet taking place. Should the improvement in the conditions, I think, help these companies, then certainly both Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland's the commercial vehicle portfolio would probably, I think, start performing better results. But at this point of time, I would think that I think it is still about a quarter or two away from it being happening, or the reality is going to be at least taking 1 or 2 quarters more, because I think the mining business has once again started. Industrial activity is picking up, but according to me, I think this commercial vehicle segment will catch up with about a 2 quarters lag. So I think one will have to wait for that period.
Deven, what about banks though? Does it seem like they will continue to be under pressure, or do you think now that the bank nifty is pretty close to the bear market territory, perhaps we could see some bounce coming in?
Well, on one side you have the overhang of the non-performing asset and the provisions thereon. Because of again the same situation applies. If the recovery in the economy is not happening, some of the provisions are not basically, I think, getting reversed, and as a result of which I think it is remaining a overhang on the bank. But on the other side, I think there are brilliant prospects of rate reductions now emerging. Given the controlled inflation and the lower inflation that we are talking about, and given the fall in the bond yield prices, at least the provision on that front will come down as far as bank books are concerned. And to that extent, I think you would probably find that the performance getting to a greater extent balance between these two provisions. The key would be lying in the loan growth, I think, which should happen happen going forward. Currently between 15 to 17%. If it starts going in the vicinity of 20% and above, you would probably see the banks returning back into favor. I believe that I think it is making a case for long-term investor to buy under this kind of a situation into some of the quality banks, particularly the likes of State Bank of India in the PSU bracket and ICICI Bank, Axis Bank in the private sector bracket. I think these are some of the banks I think which could possibly perform 25 to 30% upside going forward in next 12 to 15 months. So one could probably consider adding them into the portfolio given the possibility of better prospects therein.
What is the future for names like Reliance Infra, Tata Power? For those who bought into these stocks with the assumption that they are cheap, they're crying, they're suffering.
Yes, I think with this kind of political environment wherein the state governments one after another is going to take this kind of disastrous route of killing the businesses, to my mind I think it is going to be a suffering is going to continue till longer for some of the investors. To my mind I think we need to return to the rational policies and not I think the appeasement policies that some of the state governments have started following. This is not going to help any of these companies, and I am equally concerned about this aspect. I believe that I think some of these companies which are otherwise good potential companies given the business that they are into, I think unfortunately they are getting victimized. Like I think the oil PSUs, they are getting victimized because of the policies of the states.
Deven, you're talking like a true capitalist now. Look at the benefits. If power prices they come down, cost of production also comes down, productivity will go up. I mean, one side we are blaming everything on high cost of capital, investment cycle has broken down because power prices are high. Now that power prices are coming down, we are complaining.
No, Nikunj, I don't think that I think power prices can come down so easily. Where is the feedstock prices coming down in the global market? Has Coal India reduced the prices of the coal? I don't think so. So from that perspective, I think you don't get the cheaper raw material and neither you can pass on the benefit to the end consumer. I think we need to be realistic. On the contrary, I think I feel that the interest rate cost is basically acting as a major amount of cost factor for the capital goods sector and the projects therein. So to a greater extent, I think till the time rate of interest comes down, even from the financial aspect also the cost coming down is not materializing. So according to me, I think asking for cost reduction and making companies run into losses, I think it could be a suicidal game. Frankly, I think I'm not talking capitalist, but I would like to say that I think if investor puts in money, he must get his return. If he cannot get the return, he will not put money into the business.
Deven, what's the sense that you're getting about names like United Spirits? Because again, Suntory from Japan, it seems have sought a buyout of the entire White and Mackay. Of course, you know, it's not confirmed news, yes. But do you see trading activity heighten on United Spirits now?
Well, I think the way in which the mood in the market is, honestly, I think we don't track this company and the valuations therein. But I do know, I think the valuations on a stretcher side. But the fact remains that I think the market is, I think, playing with a lot of speculations at this point of time. Honestly, I think we don't have any views, so I would refrain from giving any recommendation on this subject.
Okay, Deven, we'll let you go on that note. Really appreciate you taking the time out and speaking with us today.